Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, even Monday night, 8 p.m. The Online Darts Live Lounge returns, episode 194. Is there any sign of this teenage dream ending, or is it turning into a complete nightmare for everyone else? We will discuss. Myself, Phil Bars, Jack Garwood, and Dan Simpson here for the next couple of hours to keep you company, talking in all things darts. Gentlemen, how are we?
Oh, good. Yeah. Busy as ever. It's been a canny old week. Yeah. Weather got out at the weekend. Sunny up here. Weird this time of year. Very, very sunny. But I didn't get to enjoy much of it. I got to skip at the house because we're getting some building work done. So I spent most of my time where I should have been enjoying the sunshine, carrying shite through to me skip. All good, though. We're keeping busy.
You all right, Gob?
All good. I'm alive. I'm knackered. I'm very busy at the minute, obviously. So I wasn't here last week. Non-stop. Friday, varsity, Nottingham. Saturday, London, Sidemen charity game. Sunday, went to my parents, saw my niece for her birthday, worked all day today. Like, busy life.
Right, look, it's never a dull moment in darts, is there? That is for sure. Let's jump into the chat room. Malachi is in. I remember you from yesterday, absolutely, and the Euro Tour stream. David is in. James, K-Days, how we doing? Bob, Owen, what's Ram? How we doing? Dixie, Dean says evening all. Bruce says hello, gang. The Greatest Showman, how we doing, folks? Marcus, evening OD. Kev, how do? Shelty, Adam is in. I'll tell you what, it is going on, isn't it? Andrew,
Busy night.
yeah. I'll tell you what, Tom's live, Sam, Robbo, Connor, I'll tell you what, Lendor is in, Simon. Oh, you lot are absolutely smashing it. John says good evening, Ross. And of course, Mr. Anthony is in. How are we doing? Don't worry, we're going to talk about your lad for quite some time.
It's been a busy old week, hasn't it?
I thought I was busy. Christ.
Yeah, busy 7 days. Sunday to Sunday.
It's like it's going to be retired by the time he hits my age.
The question is, though, is he going to go to the Pro Tours, or after the week he's had, is he just going to go, sod this?
I think we can find out the answer very, very soon.
Well, he's on the entry list, but all the Premier League boys were, and I'm like thinking, how many of them are just going to sack it off come after?
Well, I know Carl Sneed got a late call up today.
So
at least someone else has gone.
Someone's gone, yeah. I was interested to see that they were all entered, and then it'd be like all eyes on tomorrow to see actually who's gone, sod this.
See, I think there's a lot of reasons to play for multiple people at the minute, especially the Premier League lads, because there's some of those Premier League lads that just need to win a game of darts, and they need to get more in the habit of winning a game of darts, and Pro Tour is a good excuse. And there's others who can't stop winning, and sometimes when you can't stop winning, what you need to do is keep playing, because why would you want to stop? You don't want to break that cycle. It will be very interesting to see who's going to be there and who isn't. That's good to know, Anthony.
Bob says, how we doing, lads? And yeah, we're going already in the hotel in Leicester. Brilliant. To be fair as well,
obviously sympathy for that. Leicester
you beat me to that one. That is,
Leicester is an absolute shithole.
It's rough to make people go to Leicester, but at the best of times, if you've got to go there and work, mind you, I suppose. Why else would you go other than work? You wouldn't go for your holidays, would you? It's not.
Mind you, I loved it. In the afternoon, we'll talk a bit more, but obviously I know you guys weren't watching it all, that literally mid-game, he did a Peter Wright and changed darts. Not the same barrel. And we were like, they couldn't get a good shot on it. He came back from the table when he was screwing his flight back in afterwards. Did you change darts, lad? He was like, yeah, the grip had gone the other one, so I just got a new set out. And then went on the rampage.
Some people are like that. I think it's a mentality, and I'm glad that he's got it, because I don't think it does players good to foster, over years and years and years that they play with a set of darts, this one individual set of darts. Like we've seen it happen to people, and all of a sudden, they break a point, something goes wrong with that set of darts. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a good thing to be at the other end of the scale with Peter Wright, and carrying around a backpack full of darts and throwing 3 different ones on a visit to an hockey. But I think that being able to be flexible enough to throw different things, or to even just throw different versions of the same darts and not be obsessed with one set, is a good thing to be able to foster that flexibility.
Yeah, 100%. Also, you mentioned Peter right there. I know he sometimes watches the show. Happy birthday to Snakebite if you are watching from your Airbnb somewhere in Leicester area. Hope you've had a good day. Spending in Leicester's never a good thing, but we know.
It's the second time we said that already. I don't think Leicester is a shithole.
Leicester's getting no love tonight, is it? Leicester's getting absolutely no love at all.
It's just that. Then everyone's like, sod this, Leicester. But look, let's go straight into it. Look, I always remember the line that Dan Dawson used at his first World Championship. This teenage dream shows no sign of stopping. We are 14 months on from that, and it is just getting ridiculous. In a week, the UK Open, a Premier League night, the first Euro Tour of the year. This teenage dream is just rewriting the history books.
Is it a bad thing that we aren't surprised? Should we be stunned and shocked by the fact that he does things like this? Or have we just, I don't know. It's amazing. Like it's absolutely class, isn't it? Like it's very, very cool. The fact that, I am the debate over what is and isn't a major bores me. And people who enjoy having that conversation aren't generally people I enjoy being around. But like, he's lifted another big pot on TV. That is a particularly big pot. This isn't a throwaway championship, in the UK Open. But then he's carried it on and, he's won the things that he's played in. Euro Tours are becoming increasingly important, and there is all the best players in the world are there. Everybody keeps moaning that the better players are all protected by being there. But what it means is you haven't got a lot of randoms to play through. You've got to play through the best players in the world. Plus, we know that the Premier League is of a caliber that it is, and he's managing to get his foot down there as well. It's a very exciting time, but we'll see. Because I just think the sky is the limit. It can keep going. He can win everything this year. And then if he doesn't win everything, has he underachieved? I know he's that good, isn't he? It's difficult to say now.
Look, it's the frightening thing is, and look, we've seen this over time, that the very best, the generational best have this. It's the gears that he's got to go through. Like, there was a couple of times where the game was nip and tuck and his opponents were in it and he'd go 11, 12, 13. See you later. It's those gears and those blitzes that he goes to. And it's like we say it, when he presses the button, it's ridiculous. God, I'm not sure if you'll get this reference, but I know, Dan, you will. I said it on the stream yesterday. It was like Tom Quealy on Frankel. With a furlong to go, he'd just clip and no one would get near it.
He doesn't. It's not that he doesn't know he's beaten, because it's just that it seems like he always knows he can win. It's almost the other way around. We've talked about players not knowing they're beaten, where they can just sort of like dig in and grind and fight. And it just seems that when he gets himself in a bit of trouble, he doesn't flap. Might be. Like, the thing is, we say a lot, or I'd say a lot of positives about, how he conducts himself and how he talks to the media and the way, just generally, the people that encounter him and meet him, they never have anything bad to say. They always think, well, what a humble, polite, nice young chap he is, which is what you want from somebody like that. Certainly, where you've got loads and loads of kids looking towards them and but you run out of superlatives, don't you? Or I do.
Well, you've summed it up there. That look, in the way modern society is, that the youth of today can be very horrible and very cruel.
Yeah,
we see that they can be absolute arseholes, but there isn't a bit of that in Luke. He is one of the most humble human beings I think I've ever met. considering he is at the top of his craft, you'd never know it. He's just like, yeah, I'll go and play.
It's that calmness. Amazing. It's that calmness that I was referring to there, and that maturity that means I've absolutely no idea how he feels during it. But by God, that's frightening, isn't it, for people? Because if he, the level of, like, there are occasions, yes, and he seems to find very good timings, because he does interact with the crowd and the cameras in a way that draws people to him. He's an incredibly watchable player, but he never looks to be panicked or like it's getting on top of him. And we see people, so many players, where they are behind in games, or they make a mistake, or they do something that upsets the other player. They go for a cheeky bullseye that maybe people don't like, and then they miss it, and then it can easily get on top of people. We see it get on top of people all the time. And if it does affect him in any way, he does a brilliant job of, again, like he does everywhere else, just remaining, calm and in control, or seeming to be. And it just adds to the fear factor that people must have playing for him, because you can be 3-4 legs ahead of him. He doesn't look bothered, and you're not convinced you're getting to the finish line still.
Well, God, teenage dream for Luke, but absolute nightmare for everyone else at the moment.
It is as well, because the up was never going to be an issue. Look, we said that from the very beginning when he's winning at the Super Series, etc. That transition across was always going to be fine. It was, how does he react to those first dips? And he sort of had those already, hasn't he? He's had those moments where it doesn't quite go right. He's tinkered between the coloured sets of darts and whatever. He's had moments where he's not won. Like last year in the majors, they weren't that great for him, were they? There was a lot of early exits, Van Gerwen in the match play, I think it was, and a couple of others where it was first round, and we're like, how does he respond to that? And already he's shown that he's got that bounce back ability, if you like. I'm not a fan of that word, just made up a couple of years ago. But you know what I mean? He's got that, hasn't he? And actually, like, when you're on this rise and on this up, there becomes like a fear of losing, doesn't there? And then like a flappiness. And like Dan said, he just doesn't have that. He isn't afraid to lose. He's learned how to get beat, basically, because that's what happens when you're 14 years old playing in men's competition. You've learned how to lose first, and now he knows how to win, possibly more than anybody else on the planet right now.
It's mental. Jamie, I'll star that because we're going to talk on that topic a bit later as we go through. But look, the start of this week, obviously, we touched on the UK Open last week, which was incredible. But he then goes to Brighton. And look, game one, Chris Dobie had him in a little bit of trouble. But then,
a lot of trouble. Come on.
But from that moment, that last leg decider, when he pressed the button, he never looked in any danger of not winning from that moment.
No, well, as a I'm a fan of both of these players. And when Chris Dobie goes a break ahead, and if he was playing any other opponent, you'd think, oh, thank Christ he's pissed this. Like, you're not comfortable watching that. Like, I'm still watching it thinking, and it's because we know he's got that gear, because we know his foot can just go down. We know how quickly Luke can rattle off legs. Like, a first to 6 against him, like at 5-0 up, you're not comfortable, because he can just flick that quick and start to go 11, 12, 11, 12, 12, 11. And all of a sudden you sat there going, shit, I was 5-0 up. I missed 2 doubles. Like, now I'm out.
Look, the night itself in Brighton was very split. Let's do the shit bit first. Now, I don't know if this was just thrown on the stage in excitement or thrown at Nathan, but a pint ended up on the stage in the vicinity of the asp as he was walking on. Now, we've seen, obviously, MVG's had one thrown at him during the walk-on, but for one to get on the stage, and we saw Nathan talking to, I think it was Hugh refereeing it, that, again, we're not labelling it, we're darts fans, so we don't do it, but there is more and more of this creeping in that has to be stopped. You cannot have them throwing things onto the stage.
I think my stance on it is exactly the same as it is for basically any other infringement, like whistling and generally acting a dickhead. Is I'd have them pulled out by their feet. Like I mean, small part of me thinks it's relatively impressive getting a pint glass that far when it's not a glass and it's a plastic one. The plastic ones they don't fly very well. So it just on distance alone, like, you know, congratulations. But yeah, I just think if you throw something in there, and it's been highlighted because it's been thrown at a player. Like, that's not the line that's not the threshold I would choose to have people dragged out. For me, if you throw a pint, you're out. Whether it's behind you, over your head, at the stage, at your mate, at your missus, whatever. If you've got a glass and you traject it towards another person, you're out. I don't know how we have any tolerance for it. If it happened in my local pub, you'd be out. Why is it any different? Like, why? I don't know. Is there a warning system? Is it like, I'm not having it that someone couldn't find out really quickly? Those venues are absolutely littered with CCTV cameras. Like, people know straight away. Just find out and drag them out. It baffles me that they don't. Maybe they did. Maybe somebody did get dragged out.
Yeah, possibly. That I don't know, but it was just look, it's just ridiculous, and I like this client. We'll touch on that. Look, it wasn't Sky's finest hour in terms of the broadcast itself. Look, there were obviously issues, but look, that happens with any live broadcast, and I understand people's frustrations at home that the coverage wasn't up to its normal standard. But when you are broadcasting live, look, we've worked in broadcast job that we know that sometimes you can test everything and you know everything should work. Sometimes there are just things that happen in broadcasting.
Yeah, it happens. And the fact that, I'll let you into a bit of a secret, PDC TV was not cutting out at the same time as Sky was if you happen to use something like a VPN network. So it wasn't actually the broadcast team on site's fault. It was whoever was relaying the signal for them.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't working for some reason. Like,
it's the same in the venue. We had the feed, and ours didn't. Our feed was fine.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it did pick up because there was some absolutely superb, like really, really good darts played that night. There was some cracking matches. It was, for me, the best night so far of the Premier League in terms of watching entertaining games and just it generally being exciting. And it was a shame that we didn't get to enjoy that first game. But in all honesty, the first game was probably the shit one. And then the rest of it was very, very good. And I don't know about for everybody else, but mine was largely uninterrupted after the second game, I think. There was odd bits and bobs, but it got a lot better.
Well, yeah, let's touch on that the 9 dart. I must admit, I wasn't aware.
Which one?
We'll do the first one first. I wasn't aware that this 30 grand set of 9-carat gold darts was even a thing until someone said about it.
Nope.
The journalist you are.
Well, I didn't know about it, but to be fair, I rely on Phil to tell me all these things. My excuse is, well, Phil didn't know. He didn't tell me, did he? Like, yeah. I get this information in our WhatsApp groups after you two have found it out. I just think I do think it's a weird prize.
It's a good prize, though.
Is it?
It's unique, isn't it? And also, like, the problem with the 9 dart is they can't get anybody to insure it, can they? But I guess jewelry's a bit different.
If you hit a 9 dart in the Premier League, you're getting a 30 grand set of gold darts. I think that's a great prize.
What are you going to do with them? You ain't throwing them, right? So you ain't throwing them. You can't really sell them unless they're melted. Because who's going to buy that for 30 grand?
Oh, someone will buy it. There are weird and wonderful collectors. Someone will buy it.
Philip, and you'll let me introduce you to the Germans.
Yeah. So, why wasn't I told, boys? Exactly there. To be fair, it was probably on a press release that I just didn't read to the bottom of.
I think if you went to Ramsden's, they'd give you scrap value. They'd weigh the gold and say you can have however many grams of 18 carat it is. I don't know. Maybe I just don't understand the crazy darts collectors as much as.
Oh, there are some absurd collectors up there which will pay for it.
Yes.
See, Luke Littler is young enough. Yeah, but you see, Luke is young enough where he could do a fashion statement and have it put onto some sort of chain and wear it.
Like he's just said that, I could see Luke, right? Say Luke, as in Littler, gets his hands on a set for it in a 9 next week. He's already qualified for the O2. Could you imagine him rocking up at Sheffield and playing with these 9 carat gold, 30 grand gold darts?
To be fair, he's got loads of coin now. He should offer one of the others 25 for it. See if he gets a bite. He could offer 25 and just turn up chucking them. Don't need to hit a 9 dart. I got the coin.
But as well, we forget that for everything Luke Humphries has achieved in the last couple of years, his first TV 9 darter. If you'd said to me,
crazy to me.
Yeah, if you'd have said to me, "Is Luke hit a 9 darter on TV before Thursday?" my instant reaction would have been, "Yeah, of course he has."
Yeah, I'd have been, of course it was. And then I'd have racked my brains for 10 minutes trying to think,
yeah,
oh, where was it though? But I would have immediately said, yeah, of course he has.
Yeah, 100%. But it was one of those ones where as soon as the treble 20 went, he never looked like missing. Where you see some 9 darters, Gob, and you've refereed them, you thinking, yeah, this ain't going to go.
Yeah.
But from dart 1 on the finish, it just looked perfect.
I refuse to get excited until 7 have gone.
Is that your sweet spot?
Yeah. And
That's
then I
what.
started going, shit, are they going treble 15 or treble 19? And what happens when they miss the double 18?
Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah,
because I don't do that maths that often.
You don't have to do any thinking until then.
But the other one, I'm a bit like, shit, what does that leave?
To be fair, I that's why I like Gerwen Price, because he goes downstairs first and gets the difficult one out of the way.
Did you see the video of the poor lad refereeing for County this week who got stitched up by a Luke Littler route on a finish? I can't think what it was. Might have been a 138. Someone had gone treble 18, gone a complete rogue way that he shouldn't have done, copying Luke Littler. And the referee called it no score, and then had to go back and go, oh shit, sorry. But the footage, somebody's got some very good footage of it. I'll dig it out. I'll send you it, Gov, because you'll enjoy that.
But yeah, it's Luke Humphries again.
That's where it was. Yeah, it was
against Rob Cross was superb, and then Rob hit one himself. Ultimately, though, both players lost the game after hitting them.
It is staggering how often you hit the perfect leg and lose the match.
We talked a lot about it on the Fallout Thursday night, straight after, and looked at or talked a lot about the adrenaline dump that happens and the amount of adrenaline that's released both by the player and in the room, and then the effect that it can have on another player for them to come out and win a leg or dig down a little bit. And it's very interesting. I think a lot of it is down. I do think there's a lot of it down to adrenaline and the crowd and the sort of change of dynamic and then the expectation and everything else.
Yeah, look, 100%. But look, overall, I thought a wicked night in Brighton. One of the smaller Premier League nights as well. You're very on top of the stage there. It's not like one of these big shiny new arenas. It's old and it's quite that bear pit atmosphere. It's
easy to hit someone with a pint glass. That's
yeah, and then from there, obviously, all the players hopped it over to Belgium, or the Premier League boys did. All the others were already there because they had to play on the Friday under the new structure. But first of all, wow to Belgium. What an atmosphere all weekend. Even the Friday afternoon session was electric. Now, that's now 2 years in a row that Euro Tour has been exceptional. is it now time to pull the trigger on something bigger in Belgium?
They certainly have the crowd for it, but I think in terms of something bigger, the only logical thing I think that makes sense is a Premier League night. You know, we do go to Europe already for Premier League nights, but you know, it's not like we're going across the world. It's an hour and a half. Some of these flights, they're not big. That you can travel further in Britain than you can to get to some of those. I suppose the answer is purely and simply that if it makes financial sense, it'll happen. Like if they can make more from doing that, then they can go into a, you know, Brighton or Nottingham or another city, then they will. I'm not sure. It'll all just depend on the pounds and pence, won't it? It'd be good for the people of Belgium. More of them will get to see big darts. I do think there are enough opportunities. You know, if you live in the UK and you want to get to a Premier League night, like within reason, you know, if your closest venue. I mean, I always moan about how frustrating it is for me to get to see darts in the northeast and how far I have to travel for everything. But realistically, the Premier League, I think, well, I've got Newcastle 40 minutes away. If I don't want to go to Newcastle, I can go to Leeds. That's an hour away. Or I can go to Manchester, and that's like very drivable and doable as well. Or I could go to Sheffield, which again is probably about the same as Manchester. Or I can go up to Scotland on the train. And I think like you can get to it. So why not give more people the opportunity and stick it over into Europe if you want to grow the game there?
Yeah, God, would you now pull the trigger?
I think so. It definitely deserves something. I don't mind the suggestion in the chat room of the Benelux Darts Masters moving to Belgium because technically that's within that region. And then you sack off the 7 Dutchmen, play a few more Belgians, you know, fucking balance it out, do that shit.
What about the Luxembourg players? That's what I always say.
Bring them on.
It should be a 3-way balance.
Once he wins a week at the Super Series, he can play in the World Series.
Should be a 3-way balance.
Yeah, Johnny, we're going to touch on that in a little bit, mate, so don't worry. Yeah, look, the crowd was just absolutely electric all weekend. But let's go to this new format, and the seeded players, shall we say, didn't have it all their own way in this new way of playing.
Good. Fuck the system.
And there's a little bit of it, but you know how.
No, don't give me that proves the system works, because that's exactly what the PDC do with the Premier League as well. Oh, look how right we were. Luke Humphries proved us right that you need another year before he won the Premier League. Fuck off.
No, what the problem is that do you not see that that's exactly what the PDC will point to? They'll point to someone who is qualified and then ends up in the top 32 by qualifying for the Euro Tour events and go, what do you mean it's impossible? What do you mean we discriminate? Like, look at and there'll be some rando that's just like, qualified come through a couple of qualifiers, picked up a couple of games, and all of a sudden they will be able to point at him and go, well, look at him, he's done it. Anyone can do it then. I don't know what Suter's on about. Why don't you just qualify like him?
The other 31 players in the top 32 haven't changed for 6 months.
No, but it's coming. Like, it is. Matt Campbell currently sits 9th on the European Championship qualification scale. Like that, he proves their point for them, doesn't he? They will be backing Matt Campbell extensively going forwards.
To be fair, yeah, Matt played really well at the weekend.
Very cracking. He was unlucky. He was unlucky to come out when he did as well. I thought we've seen for such a long time now the potential that Matt Campbell has, and when he's at it, like his scoring power is so good, and he's a really good watch as well. Like he's an entertaining watch, and he played some gorgeous darts at the weekend. Again, probably winning a couple of games that you probably wouldn't have backed him for in Cam Menzies and then Peter Wright, and averaged just to scrape under 101 against Ross Smith. Like, did everything that you should do to win those games, really. He played very well.
Yeah, look, a lot of chat about Gary at the moment as well, Gob. Look, yes, he's lost in the first round again, but at the moment he seems to be running into these performances. So obviously, I watched it. He was 4-0 down at one point against Luke Woodhouse. First 3 legs in a row, Luke Woodhouse took out 124, 106, and 170 with Gary on doubles or finishes on all of them. Surely that has to change at some point for him, because it's not as if he's playing poorly at the moment.
I don't know. You'll have to ask the likes of Ricky Evans and Chris Dobie and Joe Cullen, who have all been there and done that, haven't they? Like, these are the guys that get it against a week, or it feels like they get it against a week in, week out. He's still running to a decent average. The worry for Gary in that situation is he doesn't do an awful lot of the Euro Tours. So if the ones he is going to, this is happening to him, it might be a bit of a worry for his hopes to make the European Championships. Because you feel like, despite the fact he's a seeded player or whatever, like, he is one of the ones more likely to miss out because he just won't go to enough of the events.
Possibly, but I think last year, didn't he win event number 3 or something? He won early last year, didn't he? Which...
Say like that. You say that like winning on the Euro Tour happens to anybody and everybody. Like, they're incredibly difficult to do, and the number of players that have done so is still incredibly small, despite the fact for the last couple of years darts has exploded with players ranked 56th in the world winning Pro Tours. That just doesn't happen on the Euro Tour. There's still, less than 20 different unique winners on the Euro Tour in its history since its inception. That is a ridiculous number.
Oh, it's mad. But my point was, the fact that Gary won a Euro Tour early last year effectively meant he knew he was at the European Championships, where if he knows he's not, will he skip as many? I don't think he will.
No, and you look...
You tell him are a ball ache to get to.
You look as well at the, so that even just the next one, just because we know we've already got the qualifiers for it, it's only a couple of weeks' time, is that, like, it's stacked that, like, Gary obviously currently sat there, I think, what is he, 14th in terms of the seeding, but obviously the rest of your Pro Tour Order of Merit qualifiers, they're of a really good standard. The names in there, they all give Gary a very good game on the regular at the minute, and often many are beating him. But then within that qualifiers, you've got Joe Cullen, Connor Scott, Nicole Springer, Ricky Evans, Kevin Dukes. Like, it's a really strong qualification field, this next one. And there's not going to be many easy games, unless you can look out with a host nation qualifier, or you're going to be playing someone of a very good standard very quickly. Certainly in that next one where we haven't got really any rogue qualifiers.
No, I agreed. It'll be interesting. I'll tell you what, Mike De Decker was an interesting one, because he was awful on the Friday, but then all of a sudden it was the Mike De Decker that won the World Grand Prix, and the new equipment seems to be working well for him. Great display to beat Luke Humphreys, and then I'd say ton topping averages against Schindler, beating Gerwen Price. It just looked like, pardon the pun, the real deal again.
It's amazing what happens when you shut your mouth and play darts, isn't it?
There's still work. Go on, mate.
There's like Gerwen Price. Gerwen Price and I have had a love-hate relationship for the last few years, where the man just needs to play darts and pay somebody to manage his fucking Instagram story for him, because he simply cannot keep doing what he's doing. And do you know what? For the last 4, 5, 6 months, when his place in the Premier League was under threat, suddenly he learned how to toe the line once again. And, I'd love to be back in, and whatever else. And, look at this, I've got a PR company. Doesn't even have a PR company, potentially, or whatever. But you get what I'm saying. Mike De Decker needs to learn that very, very quickly, because he's at a bit of a crossroads now where it can go one of two ways, where you're going to do that much talking. At some point, the failure to back it up is going to get to you. Peter Wright does an awful lot of talking. He backs up a little bit of it, but he's probably the player that gets humbled the most, especially if you go back to the Van Gerwen Wright feuds of the last couple of years. the difference is Wright wasn't afraid to go back and do it again, but had also proven that he could play at that level where it doesn't matter if he gets made to look a clown, because the one time he doesn't, it's going to be worth it. I'm not sure Mike's at that same level yet.
No, I don't think because of the inconsistency. Yes, he lifted a big pot, and he's lifted a pot on telly because he was unable to back that up, which was, if we're honest, ultimately, why he wasn't in the Premier League, because other than winning that pot, everything else he did for the year preceding was, second round at the Worlds, second round at the Euros, second round at the Slam, and it was underwhelming. And what he needs to do is focus on being a player who constantly finds himself at the back end of tournaments. There are plenty of players that will always be the favourite in matches against Mike De Decker that haven't won a trophy, haven't won a pot on telly. The likes of Chisnells and Hetters, and they will continue to be favoured in terms of the bookies odds every time they play Mike De Decker, until he stops becoming a novelty. Because at the minute, he is a novelty. He is a player that was ranked a mile away that came through and won a pot on telly. He had a good weekend. And he
in a different format, by the way, in a format that is not played at any other point through the rest of the year.
Yeah. And this is, so he's had a good weekend in his career. There's nothing to say that he's not a brilliant dart player, because he is. But he doesn't sit at the top table. Yeah, he just had a good weekend. He's got to back that up really before he can give it the big. And until he does that, then people are always going to. I mean, sounds a bit harsh, but like the stuff that when he was giving it on large on social media, I felt a bit like, oh. Like it wasn't like it was with Getty, because when Getty does it, you sort of think, he's done so much, like he's got enough to point at and look at and say, fucking look at all of that and look at all this money I've made, and I'm going to give you some. Whereas with Mike, I thought, oh bloody hell.
Well, I know obviously Marcus says here, can't moan about not having characters. And so, but my issue wasn't the fact that the first time the Decker had these wings, I don't mind if someone does it once, I've got no problem with that. The thing I didn't like is he went back and did it 2, 3, and maybe 4 times about the same point. Do it once, have your say, I've got no issue with, but don't overcook it.
There's a big difference between being a character and being petulant. Like there is a big difference.
Yeah, I'd say the first time was fine. Also, I know this is only one Euro tour and people will get excited, but did Boris Kirchmar again show the flaws of Q School? Because again, there are not 128 players better than Big Bad Boris. And even if there are, I'm not telling him that he's not one of them.
Sure, we'll see.
All right, you can tell him. I'll pick you up afterwards.
Go
on. Again, incredible from Boris.
Some player, isn't he? Look, you don't win as many soft-hit titles if you haven't got a bit about you. He started to put it together a little bit towards the back end of last year. He was one of those that was potentially tipped to go to Q School and get that card straight back again, and now he's a little bit solid.
Yeah, it was good.
He's also as well. He's playing in the next event. He's the Eastern European qualifier for event number 2 as well. So we're going to see more of him on the Euro Tour. So there's further potential for him to carry on. He hasn't made event 3, but we will see him again at event number 2.
Alan, we're not saying he played brilliantly, but I'm saying is there aren't 128 players better than him.
Nope.
Is what I'm saying. And that's the flaws of Q School, that you don't get the best players coming through.
I don't think there's 100 players better than him. Never mind.
No. But obviously, let's talk MVG, because it's been a torrid 3 weeks or so for him. Played okay in Dublin, but since then it's gone west. Losing at Exeter, losing very early at the UK Open, then first round in Brighton, first round here, and there was one point where I thought the action he was on the right trajectory, but the last 3 weeks, where are we with MVG at the moment, and are we concerned?
I'm not sure if concern is the right word. I just think he's right back where we thought he was. I think us, you, others may have got carried away with his early form in the Premier League. That's all. When we started the Premier League, it was, right, the top three are going to be Luke Lucan and Stephen Bunting. Bunting's still winless. Suddenly Van Gerwen was playing okay, and everyone's like, right, they're the standout three. There'll be a big gap between them and everyone else. And Michael's regressed back to type. He had a purple patch, if you like. Probably didn't make the most of it, if we're being completely honest. Couple of semi-finals in a row, but didn't convert them into finals or wins. And now we're right back to where Michael was before. There isn't the same fear factor about Michael anymore, especially not when you've got the likes of Luke, who is going on these runs. And we spoke about him a lot earlier, but the thing we didn't really mention was there's that air of Van Gerwen on the Euro Tour from 5-6 years ago about Luke as well. Now, there is a fear factor that if he puts one decent leg in on you, he's going to do 2, 3, 4, run away with it, take the game away from you. And that's what players are fearful of. That one leg is the trigger, whereas in other players' situations, they'll hit a 14 dart leg, but you're not worried because you don't think they're going to hit 12, 13, 14 to follow it up again. When Luke goes
carrying it on, isn't it?
11 dart leg, you go, oh shit, he's going to do this again and again and again.
Yeah.
Especially if he goes big visit to start the next leg and you've only opened up a 60, and suddenly you've lost 3 or 4 legs in a row because you're chasing your first visit every time because it simply isn't good enough and his scoring power is ridiculous. So look, Van Gerwen had that air about him. His action has changed a lot through injury, through dip in form, through lack of confidence, but he also doesn't have that air about him anymore. Like, players aren't scared of him, so he isn't getting those off legs. There's loads of conversations about darts is the strongest it's ever been, and you can sit here and argue that either way until the cows come home, but there's just something about Van Gerwen that isn't quite the same as old.
That's the thing, is there are lots of players who are, and look, we've talked about a lot of them recently. We've talked about Cullen and Dobie, and we've talked about Bunting, and we've talked about lots of players at the top end of the game who are struggling with playing very well and struggling to get over the line and picking up wins, as unlike the member in the chat room there who doesn't seem to struggle picking up wins anywhere. Whereas with Michael, it's a bit different because, and I'm more concerned about him than I probably are about the aforementioned big names, because the others are playing well and getting beat, and they're just not finding a way to win, or they're finding a way to lose. Whereas Michael's not playing well and getting beat, which is 2 problems, because he has the problem where he's not winning, and he also has the problem where he needs to figure out how to recapture some form as well. And lots of people are moving and making strides up the order of merit. And whilst he's relatively protected at the moment, that will change as time goes on. He's not defending a huge amount this year, but lots of other people are going to keep picking money up, and it could be a little bit dangerous if he starts to just go on the slide a little bit.
Well, it's an intro. By the way, good evening, Connor. Good to have you in, mate. Are you playing with new darts tomorrow?
We played with him on Friday, so I presume so.
But also, what does this say for everyone else in terms of when we're relating him to MVG? Because look, he's not been the dominant force that he was since 2020, 2021, that time. Yes, he's picked up a match play title in there and a Premier League title, but consistently, if we're generous, 2022 was the last time where he had a really good spell. Now, even if you take off all the money at the moment, yes, I appreciate there is... he didn't. God, Connor's telling you he didn't play with new ones.
We had 2 sets different colours, I just presume.
But he's still 3rd in the world, and he's been shit. He doesn't hold a ranking title, and he's still 3 in the world.
He had a shit year last year, and in 2024 he picked up 477 grand. There'll be a lot of people willing to do that on a shit year.
We judge Michael differently anyway, as we all know. But the fact that he doesn't hold a ranking title, and that I'm looking at the tour card race, and I appreciate there's 9 major months to go on there and so on, but he's still over about 150 grand clear of Stephen Bunting in 4th, and we're saying he's been awful.
Well, there's a lot of Euro Tour money in there, you know.
But he hasn't won a Euro Tour for over a year either.
No, he hasn't, but there's a lot of, you know, when you just have a scan down, like he's picking up, you know, there's 30 grand, 30 grand, 12 grand, 12 grand, 12 grand, 8.5. Like there's a lot of money there, a lot of Euro Tour money.
But what we're saying is that,
but if he doesn't win any this year, like,
but he's still 3 in the world, and he's been awful. So one, what does that say about everyone else when we're saying Michael van Gerwen is having the worst time of his career?
It's like saying Ronaldo's having a shit season, isn't it? You know, it is though. You know, it's like saying, "Oh, Ronaldo's having a shit season over in Saudi Arabia, isn't he?" Well, yeah, of course he is. Like, he's getting on a bit now, and his best days are behind him. But we'll always have the memories like that. I think that's a little bit. There's a little bit of that, isn't it? You know, younger people have come through and they play the game in a different way, and you can make those likenesses across all sorts of sports. You know, he will always be the player that he is, and you look at him like, you know, some of these huge players in other sports as well. But I don't think anyone would argue that his best days aren't behind him.
What I do think is happening, look, we can sit and talk about his form all day long, but what I do think is especially with the emergence of the Lukes and the level that their A game is at and the records that they continue to set or get close to or compete with, I think what is changing right in front of our eyes is Michael's position in the conversation of the all-time greats.
Not
especially when we look back on this in 10, 15 years' time.
Maybe in 10, 15 years' time, if Luke and
right now, you still sit there and you go, right, who are your top 2? Phil Taylor, Van Gerwen, right? That's true for 95% of darts fans, and a lot will argue Van Gerwen won. A lot more would have done so a couple of years ago when he was still closer to his peak. I've always been Phil Taylor, so there is a bit of bias here in that conversation, but the more that players like Luke Littler have an incredible peak and achieve things at a ridiculously young age, and the more that we can talk about the niche parts of World Championships not being the be-all and end-all and James Wade being an all-time great without one, but actually, if Luke Littler's got 5 of these Sid Waddell trophies by 2035, he's above Van Gerwen, right? That's just plain and simple. And there's an argument that perhaps Van Gerwen, despite all his dominance, underachieved in the biggest tournament of them all because he only has 3, in inverted commas, and there are players that have won more than that in different eras, etc. And I think that his dip in form, where he hasn't been able to produce it for a sustained period of time. Look, he said he wanted to be retired by this age when he first hit the scene, and he isn't. But Phil Taylor's always had the longevity, but Van Gerwen's got this ridiculous peak. And actually, when you go and compare their head-to-heads and records when they're competing, when Phil's on the decline and Michael's king of the world, Phil's still got that. And the more that someone else comes in and threatens that to Michael now, Michael's position in that all-time great list may start to just work its way down a bit.
Oh, 100%. And we spoke about this, or we was chatting about on the stream yesterday, that someone was asking me, are Luke and Luke on my all-time great list yet? And I'm like, no, but ask me again in a couple of years in terms of like the longevity fact. But like you say, in 2 or 3 years' time, if Luke and Luke win another world title each and they're sat on 2, then that changes the dynamic and changes the conversation.
The biggest threat to Michael van Gerwen's legacy is the number of world championships that he's won. Because once somebody surpasses 3, once somebody else wins 4 or wins 5, which is not inconceivable across the next 10 to 15 years, is it? That more than one player could win 4 or 5 over the next 10 to 15 years. And at that point, Michael van Gerwen, when you look at you look at world championships, because that's where you have to look first. You have to look at world championships, and you then end up saying, well, he's won more Premier Leagues than anybody else, and you sort of think, oh, well, not a ranking event, not a, and so you then think, well, we're pointing at the 7 Premier Leagues, the Premier League record, and he surpassed Phil with that, and then again the 3 match players. Is it inconceivable over the next 10 to 15 years that someone does 3 match players? I would think it's very achievable that someone else does that and other people do that. And so then I do start to wonder whether he has won enough headline banner silverware to give himself that chance of sitting in the statistics. Alan Shearer has to always be talked about among the greatest strikers that have played in the Premier League because he has statistically put himself in that conversation no matter what. So you can have every conversation about Thierry Henry, and you can talk about Michael Owen, and you can talk about, well, anyone else that you want to bring into the conversation. But Alan Shearer has to be in that conversation because he's used statistics to put himself at the top of a league table that can compare those people. And I think the biggest threat to his legacy is that he just gets surpassed on multiple fronts.
Yeah. Just going to wish Ian a happy birthday, mate. Hope you are good. The other one though, like we've seen with Humphreys, like we saw with Van Gerwen in 2012, and potentially, or like we've seen with Luke as well, that if he can win one again, is that the catalyst? Again, does he then go on? I'm not saying dominate like he did before, because that won't happen. But if he can win one again, like for Luke Humphreys, when he won that first one, when Michael Smith won the Grand Slam, went on to win the Worlds and so on, if he can win one soon, is that the springboard for him to then go again?
No. There are bigger concerns with Van Gerwen's game and his mentality in that action. And I think all that the winning does, and him being third in the world is doing, is papering over the cracks. Right now, he is not the 3rd best dart player in the world, like the rankings suggest he is. But I think he's far from that on a consistent week in basis.
No, I agree. Right now, I completely agree with you. I don't think he's the 3rd best player in the world. But what I'm saying is, even on the tour card race, when you strip off all that money, he's still 3rd.
I'm not denying that, and we can sit and talk about rankings.
That's what I'm saying. What does that say about everyone else?
I just think that there are bigger concerns to me than ability, and that one win wouldn't be a catalyst. I think it would cause him more stress, and it would keep him up there in the rankings, and people would still be happily talking about Van Gerwen as the icon and the top player he is. But then he's got the pressure of going, right, I've got to go do this again, or I've got to go back it up. It only changes legacy that little bit if he wins it and fucks off. If he goes, that's it, I'm done, I'm going out on a high, where he doesn't have to go and chase it and back it up again.
People asking right now, if you're asking me to my top 3 players in the world right now, Littler 1, Humphreys 2, Gerwen, Price 3. On current form, that's my top 3 in the world.
Yeah.
I think that's quite an easy one to call.
Followed closely by Andreas Harrison, who just wins anything and everything if it's played in Portsmouth.
I was say, if it's outside the PDC.
I still think there's probably 3 or 4 players that you'd comfortably place above Michael van Gerwen without really having too much of an argument. You couldn't argue that
Cross is playing better than Michael van Gerwen at the moment.
you couldn't argue that Cross isn't playing better than him. If you take the Premier League stage away, then Bunting, is playing better. Johnny Clayton is playing better than Michael Van Gerwen. Johnny Clayton's playing better than most players on Planet Darts at the moment. And then it's boring for everybody to watch, but you could make your way further and further down the top 16 and keep picking players here and there and everywhere. But James Wade is playing better than Michael Van Gerwen at the minute, and there's some
UK Open finalist, Euro Tour semi-finalist.
Didn't have that on my bingo book at the beginning of the year to say live on a stream.
Me neither, but it earned me a shirt, didn't it, Philip?
It's still on the wall, I've noticed.
Yeah, until I get round there with my fucking tools.
You don't even need the tools. You just got to pick it up. It's on a drawstring. You don't even need the tools to go out there.
I was going to say, he's not DIY down to the wall.
With me.
But yeah, I just look at it. I think it's an interesting dynamic. I really do. That again, and the action's digressed again. I think it's a big between now and the match play. I think is huge for Michael. I really do. But anyway, back to the Euro Tour as well. Look, there was some needle as well across the Euro Tour. Jermaine Watamina threw his toys out the pram for no reason against Stephen Bunting.
Which was random.
Which was before we go, Anthony. Pleasure to have you in, my friend. Also, has a certain machine had a brief top up at the Peter Manley School of Dark Arts in the last month? Because he was getting a lot of stick on social media for slowing games up at the weekend as well, off the back of Lickgate. Then he gave, but then it was Kissgate this weekend. Look, we say this tongue in cheek, by the way, but Wadey's found that streak again that has catapulted him into the back end of tournaments and so on again.
He's playing really nicely. there are two sides to this. Darting wise, he's playing very, very nicely, and he's rattling wise, he's doing a good job of it as well. By the looks of it, every other game we're talking about something he's done that isn't.
But he's
just
not
throwing the darts.
But he's not though, is he? Like he played bobbins at the weekend. His averages were 88, 87, 90, and 92.
Wading.
Yeah, but he's not playing well, is he? He's played and he's played all right, and his opponents have been crap.
It was Barney because Barney obviously said something in the Dutch media that he was taken aback by Wadey's kiss.
Well, he seems to keep putting himself into positions where people think his level of intimacy could border on the inappropriate. I've always found it safe just to steer clear of behaviours that could allow those types of accusations. I think it's a bit... I'm not a fan.
Of what bit? Oh.
Well,
I tell you what, the chairman, president, and number one of the Raymond van Barneveld supporters club is in the chat room. Mr. Eaton, how are we doing?
Oh, he is, yeah.
He had a very special message from Barney a few years ago, being the number one Barney Army fan.
Hey, Jar, thanks for being in the Barney Army.
That's his ringtone now, you know. When you ring him, that's what goes off on his phone.
To this day, it's still one of my finest pieces. Remember I sent it to you first, Gob? And just because he's in the chat room...
He's going to have to go and get his tissues now. Pick himself up. Dear me. Terrible.
Yeah, but look, going back to the Euro Tour, look, do we think players are now going to switch on to Wade again? As in, they're expecting the arts.
I think sooner or later someone will give him a dig. I don't know. I think the difficulty I have with him is James has been such a vocal. He has expressed a lot of feelings about how the way other people behave and act have negatively affected him, and how he finds that like to have a bigger effect on himself than other people. Like you've had the finger pointed at, I don't think it's a secret, Phil. You know, the finger's been pointed at you that he will say, and I'm paraphrasing, so I apologize if I'm not getting it exact, you know, that the way that he perceives the way you have behaved, acted, spoken, phrased things, etc., have had a negative effect on him. And therefore it shouldn't be allowed. I do then think it's a bit fucking rich to then start acting the cunt with other people and looking to, you know, manipulate or affect them by behaving in a certain way that they might find, you know, offensive, uncomfortable, inappropriate, stressful, anxiety triggering, etc., etc. Like, I just think sometimes those in glass houses, like, if you are going to shithouse people, you shouldn't mourn if you're going to get shithoused back, but you can't keep shouting like that's not fair on me if you're going to shithouse other people. You can't have your cake and eat it, can you?
Yeah, look, I fully agree. I think it's.
I did check 2 minutes past 9.
Made it past the watershed. Fine.
No, but I just think that like, and I am a fan of James, like, and I think he's done an awful lot of very, very good work in terms of the way that he's spoken about the things that have affected him. I don't think it's a coincidence that Simon Jordan is the person that's come out and challenged Paul Nicholson today, because Simon and James have produced some content together, and if you haven't listened to it, it's worth a listen. It's very interesting. It's well done, and it's really, for folks in the chat room, it's worth looking up. So I don't think it's clearly James is someone who is already on Simon Jordan's radar, who he is in touch with, who he can send a text to, etc. I just like, and I am a big supporter of some of the things that he does and says and is willing to talk about and share. I just don't think you can have your cake and eat it. You can't point your finger at people to say they're acting in a certain way and it stresses me out, therefore they're not allowed in here anymore, and then start acting in a way that's purposefully to try and stress people out and upsetting people. I'm not offended, Brad. I don't ever think I've been offended before. I just think you can't, like, I just think if you are going to call other people out for something and behave like, you know, in a similar way yourself, you're acting a bit of a dick.
And I didn't get Simon. I don't agree with Simon Jordan's point anyway. I think Paul Nicholson's point is more than valid, where Luke Humphries was annoyed by what James did. Anyone was at Minehead knows that.
Yeah, but regardless of that, it's a complete bullshit concept that this you shouldn't get offended on other people's behalf, or what? Therefore, we should just watch other people suffer, should we? Like, you know, if I see somebody getting called names at a bus stop, if I see somebody call someone something inappropriate in a supermarket, should I not challenge them? Like, should I not get offended on their behalf? Bollocks. That's how society slips into the dark ages and people just do as they fucking please. Because, like, if people stop challenging people when they're acting dickheads, then it's not a great place, is it?
100%.
Not getting offended on behalf of other people. It's just opening your mouth to point out bullshit.
Yeah, no, look, I'm completely with you there. You don't have to. I mean, but God, in general, look, we're seeing more and more. This isn't anyone in particular, but we're seeing more and more dark arts come back like it's reinvented itself. Look, one, obviously, the money involved in the sport now has something to do with it. But do you think we will continue to see more of it?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a bit cyclical, if we're just going to see it go up and down, or if it's here to stay. But I just think the issue is that these guys are in a room with each other so often. It takes so much energy these days to hold a grudge and be that bit of a dickhead whenever you play and whatever, that I'm just not sure half of them can be asked anymore.
Yeah. No,
It is, and make no mistake, I have no problem with people like playing the dark arts. I have no issue with it whatsoever. I just think you can't then do it and then hide under a protective blanket of yes, but no one's allowed to do it to me. Like, I think, like, if it's fair game, it's fair game, isn't it?
I think what you might see is there's a little known rule that referees can intervene with acts of gamesmanship.
Have you ever had to do it?
No.
Never had to.
Not officially, right? So I've refereed games where the Super Series is a very different environment to a Pro Tour or a stage game, etc., because the room is so silent all of the time. So if you are clicking your darts or if you are putting something down on the table too loudly, it is noticeable. And sometimes we have the odd word just saying, look, just be mindful of this environment, especially if you're new here. Like, this isn't the first time that this isn't like anywhere else that you might have been in or whatever else. And what you don't want, particularly in an environment where you're playing round robins over and over and over again, is we're going back to the players' room knowing that you're pissing everybody off day in, day out when you've got to be in there with 5 days for them. If players continue to do it afterwards, then that's a different matter. But sometimes, like, you forget where you are or you're not used to the environment and you might just lump there was a moment today where someone's put a glass down on the table a bit heavy. Not deliberately, but the player's on a double. So there's a look behind, and you have to go, look, just be conscious of that in this environment, because whilst putting a glass on a table really shouldn't make that much noise, that top's quite hollow, it's glass on that material, and there is no other noise in that venue whatsoever. So it is very noticeable.
You'll never see me going.
I did piss myself because sometimes there's little things, and then the bigger things always make me laugh a little bit. And the idea of Jose de Sousa just jangling his trousers makes me piss myself laughing.
I remember there was one a few years ago. It might have been one of his last in the Premier League, but they caught Adrian Lewis tapping his foot, an absolute treat. You know that camera that looks back from the board to the player? They had the replay, and you can clearly see him. It's like, yeah, you can't argue with that one, AD.
Yeah, hands up. Got me.
Again, though, I'll tell you, obviously, he doesn't listen to the show, so I can say it, but Owen Binks is one of the best at detecting that on the stage. I think his stage management is superb.
See, there have definitely been instances where I'm aware of hearing darts, etc. But there's also moments where I just won't step in. And the reasoning being is that if you make a big deal out of it, it can change the game. What I tend to do is wait until the tap-in or the darts flicking or whatever gets a reaction from the opponent. And that's the point where I step in, because there are some players, I won't, in fact, I will name him. Scott Mitchell, for instance, doesn't want you to step in. Scott Mitchell sees it as an invitation to start doing it back. If you want to go on the hockey and be a little bit of a knobhead and start taking your darts out slowly and whatever else, then Scott's like, right, we're playing silly buggers. I'm going to have a bit of this too. So he doesn't want me to tell the other player off. He wants to handle it in his own way and go, right. And once they're both at it, there's absolutely nothing for me to do then, because they're both as bad as each other, sort of thing. So I've seen him do it where he's taking the darts out one by one and he's just grinning at me out the side of his mouth, like knowing full well what he's doing. And I'm not going to say who the opponent was, but it happens. And like, because of that, I won't step in, because I know that players like Scott exist. There's no need for me to step in every single time I hear a flight going, because like I said, it is so quiet and so open. If a player's got an issue with it, look or look at me or give me a nod as if to say, come on, mate, this isn't right. And that's when I'll get involved. And crowds are a bit different. You speak up at the right moments. But again, you don't want to do it when a player's in rhythm and then throw, because then you go, right, well, actually, that's just made me focus on that more than it ever was anyway.
is that a sign, or should a good referee then look to the players almost as prompts to see, if you become aware of something going on, like is there you then looking at the players to know whether or not to step in and intervene, as to try and get a read on if it's causing somebody if it's causing a disturbance, and is that where you would take your read from the players rather than the book, if you will?
I don't know. You said, is that where a good referee would do it? You'll have to ask one.
I assumed you'd met someone at some point. I've seen you.
It's not something I've discussed fully with other refs massively. Like, if there's a moment to step in and do something, then I guess sometimes it's a bit sporadic. It's one of the only times in the sport where we have to make a judgment call. Everything else is that dart's in or that dart isn't in, and this is the maths to do so. That, when players are using the dark arts and stepping over the ocky with your final dart, or throwing a dart incorrectly, they're the only two times where we have to make a judgment call, like a Premier League footballer has to decide, if a referee has to decide if it's a foul, if you've made contact with them. Like, we're quite lucky in that sense in this sport that we don't spend an awful lot of time talking about referees and their performances. You can have a bit of a mare counting, but you get 5 minutes off in a couple of minutes to reset and go again and get off stage and whatever. Like, yeah, this is the only sport, or one of the only sports, where it's very black and white about what we do as a job for 95% of our job. There is no judgment calls. There isn't, well, I didn't agree with that. Well, it doesn't matter if you didn't agree with it. That just means you can't count. Go and get your GCSEs.
You're not interpreting the rule.
Yeah,
you're not interpreting the rule.
It's not a law. I am following rules. There's a difference. Rules are open. Laws are open to interpretation. Rules are there to be followed. And we have rules. We don't have laws. In rugby, if you decide somebody's slightly offside or whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. You want to play what's advantage for an extra phase compared to a different referee, fine. That's your judgment call in rugby. I don't get that in darts. You've either hit the target or you haven't.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look, it goes back to one of the most famous incidents in darts, and that Grand Prix, Grand Slam final, the infamous one. And I love Paul Hinks to bits, one of the nicest human beings you will ever meet. But I stand by this, that if that had been George or Kirk on stage, that doesn't escalate to where it did. And I stand by that. That I think that they'd have managed that situation earlier. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but sometimes an early intervention doesn't solve it. It doesn't remove it. It just sometimes involves one extra person in it. That's all it can do sometimes. So yes, I think you would have had them getting involved earlier, but I think sometimes there are situations where that outcome is inevitable. During the first leg, and both players know it. It's just the rest of the world doesn't yet. If they've both got on the stage in a particular mood, they both know exactly what the potential is, and it's just that everyone else is just finding out as they go.
Oh, and I remember it. Remember when Gary couldn't play Mensa? Right, he had that mental block that he couldn't play Mensa. And I love Mensa Sudovic to bits, and I picked him up from the airport once because his manager. It was at the World Championship. This is before I got involved in the media side of it, and his manager had someone playing when he was dewing in. And I won't tell you the exact words, but Mensa's English is better than what he makes out on the stage and being interviewed. And I had a very good chat with him. And let's just say that Mensa Sudovic knew when he was playing Gary Anderson what he was doing. Everyone was like, "Oh, Mensa wouldn't do that." Mensa would.
Yeah, he did.
he knew exactly what he was doing. But it was funny listening to him say it. Is the thing. It was like, yeah. I was like, I can live with that. Look, we've digressed a little bit, but also it was the women's series second weekend up in Leicester. Beau winning the 2 yesterday.
Standard.
No real
I was going to say,
real surprise there.
Hide your surprise.
No, Beau just being Beau. We had a first-time winner on Saturday, Kirsty Vinakainen. Again, we all know that Kirsty can play. So again, no real surprise. I suppose the only surprise is it's taken her that long to win.
Yeah, that's my takeaway from Kirsty's win, is that it has taken her that long to get over the line. She's incredibly talented. She won the second Women's Week at the Super Series, albeit without Bowen and Fallon in the field. But she has got talent. Her A game is very, very good. She's just a player who lacks an awful lot of self-belief, it seems. Whenever you're interviewing or seeing her play, there never seems to be that, right, I've got this moment. And she's a fantastic player. Don't know how to phrase this. She's not the youngest in the world, but she's still making a good go of it. And she might be one that lives to rue these opportunities not being around 10, 15 years earlier. But she needs to make the most of it now, basically.
Yeah, look, it was good. There was some really good darts played across the whole women's series weekend. Katie Sheldon looks as if she's returning to form. That she's not been at her best for probably a year, 18 months, but looking like she's getting back to her best, which is obviously great. We've got Angela Kirkwood. Again, we've seen when Kim Holden winning on the WADC and now transferring that as well to the women's series. Paige Pauling doing bits and bobs. I
tell you what, the match play lineup could potentially be absolutely brilliant. Couldn't? And like it is a challenge a little bit, because Beau is playing so well. Like, she's playing so brilliant at the minute that you think, oh well, an 8-player tournament with Beau Greaves in, the difference in level that we could see, you think, oh well, it could be quite anticlimactic just in terms of watching entertaining matches. But the field could be incredibly strong, and it's starting to look very strong. That those first round games could be absolutely superb. Like, we could get a really good set of first round games in that women's match play.
Well, at the moment, Gob, the 8 is, obviously, I'll do it in order: Beau, Noah Lynn, Fallon, Lisa, Robin Byrne, Gemma Hayter, Kirsty Vinakainen, and Lorraine Winstanley. Just outside at the moment, Aileen de Graaf, Angelina Kirkwood, Rhiannon O'Sullivan, Mikuru Suzuki, Lorraine Hyde, Paige Pauling.
Steady, isn't
it? It's decent. And then we go, again, underneath that, Joe Locke, we've seen play well. Anastasia Doromoslova, Steph Clark has played well on the WADC as well. So the strength in depth is there. Yeah, look, there is a standout.
It's going to be the strongest field we've seen in terms of the level we expect all 8 players to find at the match play. You know, I think we will see a better and higher standard of opening round than we've seen so far.
Not just that. When you look at the players that won't make it, that will also be the highest standard we've ever seen. Like Trina Gulliver and Laura Turner aren't the thousands behind.
Yeah.
And they're just 2 names. And what has been good is to see the turnover of names within that top 8. Yes, we've seen the likes of Fallon and Lisa and Beau do considerable damage and be there pretty much every opportunity. But the fact that Gemma's got in there on the first time around, Robin Burns in and around there, Noah Lynn going back, Vinakainen now, Winstanley, de Graaf's just outside. You look at other players like Dieter Hedman that's been in that mix before for the 8. Mikuru Suzuki, 12th. I know she's not playing an awful lot of steel tip at the minute. Lorraine Hyde's playing some lovely stuff, but will she live to rue the fact she's played so many WDF tournaments, went to Scotland instead of the women's series at the start of the year, I think it was.
Which could have, and that could be the difference.
She's a world championship finalist.
That could end up being the difference, couldn't it, between a spot at the match play or not, is choosing to play a different tournament, and it is a tough one. It's a challenging one to decide what to do and where to go. People have different loyalties, but that is I'm really looking forward to it this year. The women's match play. I'm going to take the kids and Anna, because I think it's a pretty good session to target. You know, if you've got kids and especially kids that are a bit younger, and then I think that could be a really, really good way of exposing them to darts in the Winter Gardens without being an irresponsible parent and taking them to the Friday night or something. So it's a big do. It's a big event, and I think there'll be a few that just miss out that'll be incredibly disappointed.
Well, it's also, and well, first of all, on that women's world match play, I spoke to the PDC boys, and again, already this year's women's session on the Sunday afternoon was already outsold last year's. The floor has gone.
Good.
So again, it was like you say. It was obviously the Isle of Man this weekend. It was also interesting to see that the majority of the top ladies players chose the women's series over the Isle of Man, which is a prestigious tournament in that circuit. So it was interesting that the majority picked the PDC and that match play hunt over it.
At the top, they did. There were still numbers were down overall, weren't there? There was 81 or 89
at the very top level.
But most of the big hitters, the big competitors, were in there. Considering this is a WDF ranked event, that's all right. It is a flight or a boat journey or whatever, but it is UK based, etc.
Yeah, and look, obviously, Beau's going to be playing in the Pro Tour tomorrow and Wednesday as well, and we've seen a lot on social media made about the decisions she's going to have to make pending and so on, and I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, the PDC are going to have to change their mind." Look, I don't think the PDC will change their mind. They are set. It will be Beau's decision again.
That's not happening.
I don't see a stance change coming at all.
That's not going to happen at all.
And they will let you know it's Beau's decision as well. Absolutely. It will not be long now before Matt asks to sit down with Phil or someone else various in the media to remind everybody that this is a Beau Greaves decision, not a PDC decision. They have absolutely not said she cannot play in their World Championships. They've said that she cannot play in it if she plays in the other one, and Beau continuously opts to play in the other one. I feel a bit barzy there doing the PDC's dirty work for them, but that is 100% the narrative that is going to come out of their mouth in the very near future.
Oh, 100%. It will be, look, we haven't said she can't play. It will be, it's her decision.
I still think it's a win-win. I almost think it's a no-lose for Beau because, you know, we've seen her very recently play incredibly well on a big stage, you know, give the world number one a proper push. It gave the world number one a better game than most other people did, and most other people do in recent times. Like, she played absolutely superb. However, she's so young, and she's got hopefully so many years ahead of her in darts. She's got an opportunity to go and smash loads of records before deciding to establish herself as a PDC player, which she would. Now, again, Q School aside, because we talked about Q School,
she won't need Q School.
No, but so I'm saying Q School aside, because we talked earlier about Boris, and, you know, you can look at and say, well, you know, there aren't this many players that are better than there are. There are simply not, in my opinion, 64 better players in the world than Beau Greaves. I think she keeps her tour card comfortably. The amount of money that can be earned in floor tournaments in the PDC with a tour card, I think she comfortably keeps her tour card when she decides to do it. And therefore, I think it doesn't really matter when she does it, does it? She could go and bash a load of records up and enjoy being, you know, young, I suppose.
The one hesitation I have about sitting here saying Beau Greaves keeps a tour card 100% and is in that position is that old golfing phrase, and it's doing it for your dinner. Right at the minute, every opportunity she's getting in that position is a free roll. Her yearly income / salary is quite comfortable by winning the Lakeside every year, picking up the Women's Series titles and whatever WF events that come alongside it with her ability right now. A lot of those are taken away from her the minute she does have a tour card. She can't go and play in the Super Series and make a Champions Week like she has done before. And she can't go off to the Isle of Man to pick up a nice $2,000 whenever she needs it. Or she's not going to go to the Lakeside to win $30,000. Right? All of that security blanket is suddenly gone from underneath her. It's either sponsorship, endorsements, or she has to win in a field that is more competitive than anywhere else in the world.
A couple of points. First of all, I'll do this one because it's topical as well. Aoife, congratulations to Aoife and her partner. She has just given birth to her first child. So congratulations. But look, Aoife will be back soon as well.
I suppose the DARTS national maternity scheme will be kicking in, I assume, is it?
Yeah. But the interesting bit as well, I've got a couple of bits that I actually don't think Beau's decision this year is crystal clear. And I say this for a couple of bits, or my take on it. The fact that, one, she went to Q School this year and has now played in Challenge Tours, Dev Tours, and has taken the invite to the Pro Tour, coupled with what she said last year, that she admitted that her game has gone stale by only playing in those events. I think for the first time ever, she could be open to even thinking about playing in Alexandra Palace over the Lakeside. The other one is that obviously last year, the total prize fund for the Lakeside was Dan. Look, that's no one's fault. That's just the way it is. If the money's not there, the money's not there. But the WDF did get a little bit of stick from us as well, that they kept the top prizes the same and those cuts were felt lower down, where to the point where they didn't even cover players' airfares for the ones that lost in the prelim round. Now, if the prize, and this is just an if, and it might not be, but if the prize money decreases again this year, do they keep the top prizes the same, or will that prize money be distributed more evenly? Now, if it is, let's say that I'm using mythical figures here, but let's just say instead of Beau going to Lakeside to guarantee herself $30,000, say that top prize is only $20,000. Now, we're expecting an announcement this month, Barry has said on TalkSport, of the increased prize money for this year's PDC World Championship. Now, if round one in the PDC is $15,000 and it's only $20,000 for winning it, that $5,000 difference, with the exposure you get from going to Ali Pali, the exposure off Sky Sports and everything that goes with it, as a player, you can charge a lot more for badges on your shirt, guaranteeing you're on Sky, than guaranteeing you're on YouTube.
Your exposition rate goes up.
I think the decision may be closer than what we are thinking. What do you guys think, or am I off the mark?
I would like to think at her age that she has the luxury of not having to make a decision based on pure money. As in, I'll get $20,000 if I do this, or I'll get $30,000 if I do that. Like, I would like to think that she has enough, she is able to be comfortable enough at where she is in her stage of life with what she is earning at the minute to be able to look at it and say, well, I am happy where I am at the minute. You know, let's be honest, there are very few of us, only the real useless, that if we really put our mind to it, couldn't go and earn slightly more than we're currently earning. Like, we all sort of stick where we're at because we're quite comfortable and we quite like the environment, or we like the people we work with, or the location's convenient. But, you know, if push really came to shove, could anyone, you know, could you go out and get an extra few grand a year? Well, you probably get a job the extra few grand a year. We could all go and do that. And it's whether or not she's going to go and, well, maybe not the humble, the lowly darts referee. But you know, like, is she, you know, does she really need to chase that for an extra few grand? Or because everything else beyond that's potential, isn't it? You know, everything else is potential. But if she's comfortable where she is and she's comfortable with what she's earning, then she maybe doesn't feel like she has to go and chase it because she sees enough opportunities, especially knowing that she can play in the Dev Tour and she can play the Challenge Tour and she's got other ways of generating income. I'd love to see Beau Greaves playing regularly in the PDC. I have a feeling that it's still a little way off.
I agree, Paul. I'd like to. I think it's now time. And look, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but her arm has to fall off for her not to win the Lakeside title. It is not competitive. It's shown that over the last 3 years. Her arm has to fall off for her not to win it.
I spoke to a couple of players that haven't played in that system for a while, if at all, in the last 5 to 10 years. In the last couple of months, I've had these conversations.
And they won't because she's in it.
Yeah, there's absolutely no point chasing. But not that they won't because she's in it, but the WDF Tour is a ball ache in itself, and chasing that to then potentially draw her first round or whatever isn't worth the time and effort to get to that tournament. But if she's not there at all, that becomes an open prospect to an awful lot of players.
Yeah, and that makes that system stronger as well. It's a real interesting and intriguing one. And look, I'm sure the performance against Luke Humphreys being the world number one has given her food for thought as well, because she pushed him to the limit, which was great to see.
It was a brilliant watch, that game. But probably my favourite game in terms of just general enjoyment. You know, if you haven't got a dog in the race and you just sort of think, well, I just want to enjoy watching the darts, that was as good as you see it all weekend.
Yeah, no, look, I'm with you. Remember, everyone, if you haven't yet, drop us a like and subscribe. Also, obviously, the Isle of Man stuff at the weekend, if I'm being honest, I didn't see any of it because it wasn't on
Jim.
It wasn't on Darts Connect to keep an eye on. So again, it was just relying on social media to see results. So I didn't see any of it. I did see that Paul Hogan won his first WDF title in 20 years.
Well, it was the seniors were there, weren't they? Paul Hogan winning the title, Jim McEwen averaging something ridiculous. What did he average? Something like 106 in the final to go
107 again.
107 to go back to back in the Classic, which is exactly, and like, you made me look a complete and utter clown, because when we sat here and talked about the Seniors World Championships, that's exactly what I was expecting. That's the Jim McEwen that I predicted to make the quarterfinals down at the Circus Tavern, that for some reason didn't arrive and didn't get there and turn up. And so I wasn't surprised to see him average over 106 and winning. I just predicted him to do it a fortnight before.
Yeah. Also, some really good news today from the ADC. After the vaults have been brilliant over the last 2 years, they're launching the junior vaults, which again is a great touch, I think.
Huge, really cool. The vaults are a very good setup. They are almost universally praised. You know, like when you see people that go and experience it, and what I would say is especially people who've never done something like that before, that I think they're a very, very good entry for people who haven't played, or people who are quite new to darts. We've got loads of people who are new to darts who are then going to play competitive tournament type darts for the first time. The feedback is always very, very positive, or almost universally positive. The more that anybody can do with junior and youth darts, the better. So it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, again, multiple games for your money as well, Gob. So again, we've touched on the amateur side of it, but good time for juniors now as well.
Yeah, look, the vault system definitely works. I'll be intrigued to see how they put that into play in a junior environment. Obviously, look, a lot of the vaults either lead you to the big selling point is multiple games for your money and go and have a practice, but actually the progression routes from those into things like the Super Series and tour finals and national finals and regional content, etc. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out at that level. It'll be interesting to see if they're linked with the JDC as well.
Well,
because obviously the JDC offer coaching and routines and what have you in environments that, Dan, you know pretty well. Require all sorts of. I don't want to be petty, but they require all sorts of safeguarding and stuff. And what I don't want someone to do is, here's a load of tournaments for 10 to 16-year-olds, apply as a venue and crack on with it, because that ain't right.
No, so, it's not. And what I also don't want to do, there's two things I don't want to see. Is first of all, I don't want to see anybody shotgunning it. And and if anybody is interested, there are things outside of darts that I actually know stuff about. Darts is probably the thing I know probably least about. If anybody does genuinely want some, and it's not me, but I can fix you up with some of the best, the very, very best experts in the field of safeguarding. If anybody wants to speak to someone and get some advice who was doing anything with kids and darts, I can get you fixed up and it won't cost you anything. So I'm desperately hope that everybody that is well-meaning, because the people generally come from a very well-meaning space, but you still have to make sure that all of the processes you go through are adequate. And what I also don't want, and it's when you say there about whether or not they align themselves to the JDC, is that I'm totally fine with all of the adult darting organisations trying to shithouse each other and outdo each other and dick around with their prize money and fuck each other off. And if the ADC and the WDF and the PDC and everybody else wants to do that, it's a competitive marketplace, and fair enough. I don't want to see people fucking around with junior darts and starting to compete with each other to try and attract. So, I don't want people booking tournaments on the same day as other tournaments with different prize money and different locations, because it's junior darts and it's about the development of kids, not your own fucking egos. Because if you want to have an ego, go and do something else. Don't do it in a junior sport. There's or go and coach football. There's enough dickheads coaching kids football. You can join them. So that's that. I don't want they don't have to all link up and hold hands, but I don't want to see them competing against each other.
So the initial, we haven't got any information other than coming soon. So it's youth vaults for ages 8 to 17, which I like.
Young.
What's that?
8's young.
But I like it. I like the fact to 17, because that means no booze. No one is old enough.
It's a very, very wise decision to draw the line at 17. A very wise decision.
And then it's got multiple games, fast fire format, regional finals, national finals. More information coming soon. But it is obviously supported through Winmore and Red Dragon. So with those two on board with it as well, I don't think it's going to be half cocked and half-assed. I think it will be very well done.
I wonder if they need a consultant. I could hire out the wife.
So from just from that initial
waging, you might need to clarify what you're doing with that, Dan.
So regional finals, national finals, I like that it looks like there's going to be an end game for the youth as well in this. It's not just turn up and play. There is going to be.
Yeah, I like that. And again, I hope let's hope that it's tiered. If you find that nice structure where you've got something where you band those ages, whether it's 8 to 11 and then 11 to 14 and then 15, 16, 17 at the top end, and you start to you split that up a little bit. I think It's brilliant. The more opportunities that there are for kids to play competitive darts in a safe environment around people who have their best interests and the development of their darts at heart, rather than people trying to further their own, whatevers, the better. Like, the more opportunities for kids, the better for darts. I just hope, and I'm very confident it will be, because I know the people involved. It's more me speaking generally about youth darts, because there are some fuckery sometimes.
A sad thing that was came out today or over the weekend. Mervyn King declaring himself bankrupt. He gave some nice quotes and whatever. Not paid tax on his winnings in 20 years of playing. And look, Merv is a high profile player in the sport. Maybe not now, but his legacy across the sport is high profile enough for not just up and coming players, but current players. Get your shit in order.
There's no fucking excuse. The only decent thing the PDPA do is refer you to a fucking accountant.
I knew this would be the line. They do one fucking job and they couldn't even sort Merv out.
They've got that. So the PDPA have got one fucking thing they do is to take backhanders from accountants that they fix you up with, and they've not even bothered to do that with Mervyn King. Like, it's just silly. It's silly. I haven't got a better word than silly. It's a silly thing to do. It's a silly thing to be caught out for, and it's silly. I am offering.
Yes, what it does do now is send that warning to players that are new onto tour to take the introduction talks that little bit seriously. If you're not aware as these things, because actually some people will go on as professional gamblers don't pay tax on winnings or whatever. Like, there's all sorts of folklore and tales out there, but
a lesson to everyone: do not go to the accountant that somebody else is paid to send you to. You lose the fact that you are no longer speaking to an independent financial advisor. You are speaking to a financial advisor who is getting paid, who's paying someone else to send you to their office. Just speak to somebody who is an independent financial advisor registered with the proper authorities, and they will steer you on the right path, which is a path that isn't the one that goes to jail. That's the one you want to be on. Try and keep off that path onto the others. Also, it does stick in the fucking throat slightly of those of us who are paying 50% in tax and dick knows what in national insurance and everything else. That some of the fight. Don't you worry. You get yourself down to the hospital and the dentist and make sure that my 50% is picking up that. Like, I'll keep picking that up for you. Don't worry. Like, I've got a mortgage and 3 kids and everything else to pay, but I'll keep getting, us PAYE lads will prop up the system for everybody. Fucking hell. It's an own goal. Like, I will offer upstairs, is that there is a match worn Mervyn King shirt upstairs, signed once, until Mr. Simpson put it through the washing machine. So it's now like a faded signature, but I will offer it to the Mervyn King Benevolent Fund. If anybody wants me to make an offer, then get in touch, because I will donate the match one shirt back. I will donate it. Someone has to send him the cash, because if I just donate it back to him, then they'll probably carry it out with the rest of his gear, won't they? When the lads come round.
Have you seen the unfortunate clip that has resurfaced regarding Mervyn at an exhibition a few years ago?
No.
Do you have any hang on, the question is, do you have any financial advice for young players?
Make sure you've got 2 bank accounts, one for you and one for the taxman.
That's unfortunate.
I mean, so you both know, not to the penny, but you've both got a fair idea. how much tax is paid per year from my household. And it is difficult to see. It's difficult for me to make my peace with people not doing their fair share. I've always accepted the fact that people who are doing better should have to prop up those that are struggling. Like, and it's just part of life, isn't it? Like, if some people earn more than other people, and you'll probably end up then paying more towards, you know, the public services and the NHS and everything else. But it is very difficult to then make your peace with people who have probably done better than you, who haven't bothered. You know, they've not put their hand in their pocket all the while the rest of us are getting thoroughly rinsed. My council tax bill came this year, and it began with a fucking 3 for the first time ever. Like, it dropped yesterday, the council tax bill, and it started with a 3. I'm not in a good place at the minute when it comes to talking about paying tax.
£3.76.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish.
Yeah, look, it's obviously it's not nice to see, but that news obviously broke. Have we missed anything else in a week of darts?
He is a man that if he did one of those 9 darters would be in Ramsden's with his 9 golden darts.
Yeah, whilst I think get your questions in, everyone. I've really enjoyed tonight's show. We haven't answered any proper questions as of yet. I know you weren't officiating it, but Andreas Harrison won the double trouble week, beating Neil Duff in the final.
Yeah, really good. I mean, I officiated most of the week. That was I wasn't meant to. I did Monday to Wednesday. Ref Thursday night in my skinny jeans because Paul Hinks wasn't very well at short notice. But yeah,
I thought you were going to say I wrestled in my skinny jeans because they didn't fit Paul Hinks. They didn't. Paul Hinks couldn't fit into them, so I wore them instead.
I was in the gallery, and then all of a sudden it's, "Can you ref?" I was like, "Well, I've got skinny jeans and black Nike blazers on, but yeah, I'll give it a go." But no, good week. The specials just add something to the Super Series, don't they? Like, break it up a little bit.
I love it. I think it's very cool.
Etc. Back to normal play this morning.
In the same way that we, every now and again we see a PDC tournament where we go double in, or we go set play, or we just do something different. A change is as good as a rest, isn't it? And it's quite nice to just see a different format and something done differently. So yeah, I think it's a really good way of doing things.
Yeah, 100%. So anything you two want to bring up in a week of darts before we open the floor to question time?
I can't think what else has happened this week. We've talked about a lot of it, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we've rattled most of it off.
We've done the Premier League. We talked about the women's.
Oh, no, we haven't done this week's Premier League.
Oh, to be fair, we haven't predicted Nottingham, have we?
No. So,
right.
We are going to Nottingham this week.
Great city, unlike Leicester, which is a shitter.
The city, I agree, the city's good, but I don't like the arena.
Multi-purpose, isn't it?
Yeah, it just doesn't work for darts for me.
Home of the Nottingham Panthers. What a team.
Is that who gets up to that there, is it? The Nottingham Panthers.
So, Motorpoint Arena in Nottingham, we have Humphreys against Littler, Cross against Dobie, Bunting against Price, Aspinall against MVG. So, let's start Luke versus Luke. Luke will win, but how are we calling this one?
Well, I did the Fallout on Thursday and was very, very clear that I reserved the right to change all of my picks based on the weekend. And
so you went Humphreys on the Fallout and you're going to go Littler now?
Correct. Yeah, I'm going to, 100%. I reserved that, but I got in early and I said it all depends on what happens this week. I reserved the right to completely change my predictions. Luke Littler will win 6-3.
Gob?
It is not green light this week. It is red light. Luke Humphreys wins 6-4.
Well, Ross Smith was playing then.
Great to be back, by the way.
Yes.
Yes, he
It's
changed
back.
back.
Yeah,
The
it
elite
is.
walk-on is back. I'm going to go 6'5" Humphreys.
You're wrong.
Cross against Dobie. How many legs are you giving Cross, Dan?
Just the one.
Every week.
Gob?
Dobie gets 3.
Before getting the next 3.
No. Just he only gets to 3.
I'm going for a Dobie win. I'm going to go 6'4" to Chris Dobie. Bunting against Price. Is this, if he doesn't win here, is it done?
It's already done. I don't think Price wins handily. I think he wins 6-2.
6-4 Bunting.
6'4" Price. Aspinall MVG.
This is the only real one I've struggled to pick.
You know, when Arsenal played Man City this weekend, and it's not Man City, Man United, it's kind of a case of, can they both lose? I don't particularly enjoy watching either of these two at the minute, I'll be completely honest.
Aspinall will win 6-4.
Job?
Van Gerwen 6-5.
6'4" Van Gerwen. Now, from your predictions, chat room and you two, I would like your finalists and winner at what should be called the Robin Hood Stadium, but it's not. It's the Motorpoint.
Used to be the capital.
Yeah, I remember it was Capital.
And then them and Sheffield sort of like swapped because the Motorpoint was Sheffield and then it's not anymore.
Gerwen Price is beaten in the final by Luke Littler. He's playing too well at the minute. He's got too much. Price Littler final. Littler wins.
Gob?
We are not bored of the Premier League yet, Big Johnny. Last week was the best week of the Premier League so far. It was brilliant. And 2-9 darters. Like, how can you be bored?
Stephen Bunting beats Rob Cross.
That is the most rogue final, and I'm down for it. It's rogue. I'm going Gerwen Price beats Luke Humphreys.
Just a reminder, the last time Gary Anderson was in the Premier League, this was the only night he won, and only won 3 games all year.
Yeah.
Nottingham delivers shit.
So there's been some really good questions in there as well. It's a good show when we forget the Premier League.
We should just do that more often, to be completely honest.
Good one here. I'm not sure. I haven't seen Wayne Warren for. I don't know if he's still playing or not.
Not seen him since the inaugural Seniors World Championship.
Yeah.
I would suggest that he hasn't quit playing darts and that he's just not playing
At a level where we see him.
He's still playing locally back in the Rhondda Valleys.
He'll be playing in the kitchen, and
To be fair, he is a lovely guy, Wayne, as well. Absolute lovely. Right, let's scroll back.
Full time.
Any rumblings on when the World Seniors are going back to the venues? No, Warren, keep an eye on their social handles.
You'll probably know, as you lot in the are the experts, Warren, and you'll probably know before we do. We'll be relying on you lot to tip us off of where we need to go.
The Secret Handshake fan club.
Yeah, in the fan club, we'll be relying on you lot for information. See where we need to get to and book a hotel. We'll be there though. We shall be covering it, rest assured, regardless of where they are. online darts will be represented.
Yes. This came up, and I don't know. If Matt Porter called it day tomorrow, who would take? I don't know.
Somebody will. You
Someone
can't.
will.
There's two options, isn't there? Three, maybe.
Your insurance company, a company of that size, your insurance company literally will not let you have a succession plan, like even if it was temporarily, because if in an organization like that where one person holds like so much decision making power, if they were, for instance, even to take ill, like you would need to have a plan as to who would then be responsible in terms of like who's got the delegated authority to decide there'll be certain things within their organizational structure that will need like Matt Porter's signature on, that other people can't do things or authorize certain things, or if it's things over a certain value that'll need him signing it, that there would be something immediate that would happen straight away overnight that will already be decided upon. And then you'd have to think that they'll know whether or not they've got it internally, or whether they might just go totally rogue and bring someone in from outside of
I reckon they've got it internally with a Matchroom. Obviously, Barry is in an honorary position, but could still reprise that role at short notice. You've got Eddie, you've got his number 2 in Frank, and you've got Emily Fraser. Plus, then you've got the guys within the PDC that Dave Allen's been there for a number of years. Jamie Banks has already had a broadcast, is very successful. You've got the commercial arm in terms of Adam, etc. So they've got plenty within that team that would know the ins and outs of that for a short term until they brought in somebody more experienced if they needed to.
Yeah, I think the short-term plan would be different to the long-term plan. James,
what it would be with virtually any big company, wouldn't it?
The Premier League media stuff, what stuff do you mean?
Probably means those nice little videos that Sky play before the games. And
if it's those, they're done in corridors on the evening of the event and so on.
While everyone's on a cig break.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon takes over the PDC. There we go. Imagine that, Phil.
Could you imagine?
Are you going to WrestleMania?
What's that?
Are you going to WrestleMania? I saw that someone had a couple of tickets, and I wasn't sure if you might have had your name on one of them.
Provisionally, yes. There's a couple of bits going on behind the scenes, but yeah, provisionally, yeah.
Oh, lad. And all I've got to look forward to is getting up and watching it with a McDonald's breakfast.
The pre-matches are all players all get to the venues at different times depending on when they're on and so on. So they're staggered through late afternoon and early evening. What other questions have we missed?
Max, you will get virtually shit all odds on those because he's already provisionally world number 1 anyway. As soon as that World Championships drops off Humphreys' ranking, then Littler is world number 1. So you would get
especially with an expected increase in World Championship prize money this year. Yeah. What's going to drop off would then eclipse what's coming back on.
Well, correct. That's the thing. That I think Barry was on Talk Sport, and he said it would be March that we get the updated prize money and everything. So, look, as soon as that comes, it's going to eclipse that. The prize money is going to go up. We know that. So, unless Luke wins it, and then he stays world number 1.
That's what we didn't mention. Dean's got in on that. The trophy in Belgium is gorgeous.
I liked it. I was a fan.
It's a lovely trophy, that. It's a very nice pot, I think. A very nice pot.
Is Dan Dawson saying he volleys nice because it's legend greatest bits of commentary
I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Nico's like, you wouldn't, if a knife falls out the drawer, you wouldn't stand there. You'd jump out the way. And Dan goes, no, I'd volley it back into the drawer because I'm a ledge. What's going on there? It's been a long afternoon when he starts chatting like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Luke.
It's what we do. We're here every Monday.
Oh, superb. We
Join us.
love you, boys.
We're just sharing the love, mate.
He hasn't. So what? He doesn't know that while you'll be dicking off around the world, it could end up being me and Luke on the watch along for WrestleMania. If we could get him on, he could do a WrestleMania watch along with me, keep me company while you bugger off.
The little shit got invited last year. You think he's not going to be there again if he wants to be?
He's busy that weekend. There'll be some darts on, I would have thought.
There is a direct flight.
Never stopped him in the past doing what he wants.
Well, he does what he wants, doesn't he? To be fair, like when the dart bounced out against Schindler, I want to see someone do a keepy up with it, flick it up and catch it. But everyone, the last 2 hours have absolutely flown by. An incredible show this evening. This will be available as an audio only in the morning, so make sure you check that out if you want to listen along, whether you're going walking the dog or have us on in the car or whatever. We massively appreciate it. The Pro Tour streams will return 1 o'clock tomorrow and Wednesday, bringing you up to date with everything from Leicester. But until then, a few hours' time, thank you very much for your constant support. As always, massively appreciate it. I've been Phil Bars, Jack Garland, and Dan Simpson. We are on Non-Darts. We are signing out for the night. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll see you all very, very soon.